Hello and welcome to Joy News Desk with me, Mami Esinya Miche Thompson. Coming up this hour, the majority on the Economy and Development Committee reveals the Finance Minister wouldn't request more funds in the mid-year budget review, which comes off in a couple of hours.
We are not coming to the House to, ask for additional funds to execute the budget or the budget for 2025.
We're live in Parliament with the very latest. Also coming up, the National Labour Commission warns of worker exploitation under the 24-hour economy. Also, airlines urged to plan a refueling as aviation fuel shortage looms. We'll get the latest from the National Petroleum Authority. These and more coming up with me, Mami Esinya Miche Thompson. Stay for details. Well, in a few hours, Finance Minister Dr. Keziola Tuforsin will present the highly anticipated 2025 mid-year budget review to Parliament, with everyone closely watching to see if government will stick to its initial expenditure plan or request a supplementary budget in response to emerging fiscal and political pressures. The review comes after improvements in Ghana's macroeconomic indicators, which have raised expectations for a fiscal policy that boosts investor confidence. Inflation, which stood at 23.5% at the beginning of the year, dropped significantly to 13.7% by the end of June 2025. This disinflation trend has led to analysts to believe that Ghana could achieve single-digit inflation before the end of the year, ahead of the official target of 11.9%. Well, ahead of the presentation this morning, the majority on the Economy and Development Committee in Parliament is already predicting that government will stick to the total appropriation approved in March and not request additional funds. Chairman of the committee, Eric Baffour, says the decision is in line with fiscal prudence.
The investigation I've done so far is that the government will not come to the House to ask for additional funds. That's the first thing I want us to establish. We are not coming to the House to, ask for additional funds to execute the budget or the budget for 2025. What we are going to do is that we are going to stay within the appropriation of 293 billion that was programmed to execute the 2025 budget. For that matter, the presentation will be done through a statement, not through a motion. A statement means that the government is not asking for additional funds. So the members of Parliament will only do or will have a comment on the statement.
Well, the Association of Ghana Industries wants the Finance Minister to rationalize the country's tax laws, particularly the VAT. Chonam Klen Sapelu is president of the Greater Accra Regional Branch.
I'm saying that we do not expect any major change, especially we do not expect any new introduction of taxes and so on. Our hope rather is that the very lofty idea of the 24-hour economy would actually be put to work. So the president has launched the program, and we're hoping that there will be financial allocations to ensure that they begin to implement it. So, for example, in the 24-hour economy, we talk about several incentives for private sector. So we are interested in seeing what specific incentive in terms of what is allocated in the budget and all the relief that they promise, whether it will be reflected in the budget, in the media budget. Then we've always had an issue with the way the VAT is calculated. And the last time we checked, the government promised that they were going to look at it to recalculate how the whole VAT vis-a-vis the levies are computed. Our hope is that this budget will seek to address that as well, because the way it is currently done, it would mean that 6% of local industrial production, the VAT that goes to local industry, would be unaccounted for, or in other words, we are unable to realize that money back. VAT is a consumption tax, input, output. So when you input, you have to output. But here lies the case, we input 21%, but we are only able to output 15%, leaving a 6% gap that we are unable to realize. And we've been trying to get government to act on that, and we were told that they will consider acting on it. Our hope is that this budget would address the VAT issues as well.
Well, Minister of Youth Development and Empowerment, George Opariado, needs more funds for flagship programs under his ministry.
When we engaged with the finance ministry, we said we needed capex, because as a new ministry, we needed to buy vehicles, we needed to set up. But at that time, when the budget was being prepared, I told you I didn't have a budget officer, I didn't have the core staffs. Yeah. But we needed to submit something. So what we did was, let's put together what is immediate, what we need to do immediately, and let's see if we can get funded. And
the budget speaks to that. So Jumara was allocated 100 million.
100 million.
And then the others. But I'm curious, so the 2 million cedis is...
It's for goods and services. We'll buy electricity, we'll buy fuel. It's for running of the office, more or less, goods and services, paper.
But 2 million cedis should have run out by now.
We are being...
it's 4 months?
We are managing it well.
2 million cedis?
Yes, that is what we have. So
it hasn't run out yet?
I'm not going to say it's run out or it's not run out. But at least we are...
But realistically...
It's not enough.
Yes.
It's not enough.
Are you expecting mid-year is...
I've had discussions with the finance minister, and the president himself has assured that going forward will be properly funded.
Conversation rolling, and joining me this morning is economist and senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Priscilla Chumisi Baffour joins me via the phone lines. Prof, we're grateful for your time on our desk.
Thank you very much, Mamiesi. Good morning, and good morning to your viewers.
Good morning. And Doc, I mean, ahead of the budget review, has the economy gone the way you anticipated, at least in the first 6 months?
Right, thank you once again. And just a little correction, I'm in the economics department, not the business school.
Thank you.
So in the University of Ghana. Thank you.
Right.
So essentially, when you look at what we should expect, I believe that this is the mid-year review. The main budget was presented in February, thereabout. Around that point, a number of projections were made. And we are also still under the current IMF program. So you see that a lot of the projections are based on projections within the program. And so within that, a number of projections were made. We see that the economy is on track, particularly when you look at the downward trend of inflation. You look at the relative strong performance of the cedi. And also when you look at in terms of the key issues such as government revenue and expenditure, overall, one can say that the economy is on track to achieving a lot of the projections within the year. Although I still maintain that the projection of GDP growth rate of 4% at the end of this year is quite conservative, given that on the first half of this year, the economy grew by 5.3%. And so in all, we can see stability, relative stability in the economy. But for us, like we always indicate, businesses need stability over a long period of time. So you need to protect and sustain the stability you see. Is the stability we see surprising to us? Not necessarily. We know that under a fund program, usually the emphasis is on austerity. Government needs to keep its expenditure on track, consolidate expenditure so that you don't go overboard. And when you look at it, you see that government expenditure has really been constrained. Government has been very conservative. Borrowing appetite is very low. You see that rates have really come down, particularly when you look at treasury bill rates, which is a good indicator of government's appetite for borrowing. And so in that context, you see that we are managing really with the emphasis on stability, but then post-stability is growth. Right. And so in that context, in the mid-year review, we want to see how the finance minister would move beyond the levels we have attained to make intentional effort to bring in the necessary investments that are needed to steer and stimulate growth towards employment generation and all the issues that we talk about in this economy, really.
Well, the issue about expenditure remains the elephant in the room. At least the majority claims that the finance minister will not ask for additional funding, but you're also making the point about growth. In this situation, what then would you predict should happen?
Indeed, when you look at it, you see that, yes, government has been extremely cautious on the expenditure side. A number of payments that are expected to be made, we hear that they are being reviewed, and so with time, payments would be made. Towards the end of the year, indeed, those payments would have to be made. And so when I look at the starts right now, I do not anticipate for the minister to post a supplementary budget because and not much has gone on in the first half of the year in terms of the expenditure side. And also on the revenue aspect, we are yet to see the numbers, but you see that if the revenue is not coming in, then really the emphasis in maintaining the stability is to constrain the expenditure. But there is a limit to how far you can go with that constraint because, I mean, we are a developing country. We need the resources. We need the investment to grow.
We seem to have lost Dr. Chumesi Baffour there, but we'll come back to her when we get her on the line. Let's go live to Parliament, where Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante is on standby for us. Kweku, I'm sure Parliament is buried with a lot of activity in anticipation of the budget review. What can you report?
Well, I may say anticlimax because as we speak, the Chamber of Parliament is empty. The precincts of Parliament is actually almost literally empty. If you go to the car park, you'll see a number of MPs having parked their car, but there is very little action around the immediate surroundings of the Chamber of Parliament, perhaps because of some of the things that we expect to happen today. But of course, what we do expect today, the finance minister to mount the dais today, the podium, and speak to the media budget review. How exactly has the budget been performing since it was presented in March of this year? And is he expecting to revise some figures? Is he expecting to revise some targets? As we've heard now, we do not expect the finance minister to come by way of motion and ask for any.
We're still trying to correct some issues with the audio. We'll go back to Parliament and get the very latest there. Do we have Dr. Chumesi back on the line, though? Dr. Chumesi, I understand you're back on the line. You were making a point before you left us. Dr. Chumesi, good. Hello, Dr. Chumesi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, much better now. You can continue with the point. Yes.
Right. So I was saying that we do not anticipate the finance minister to come and post a supplementary budget. Indeed, as I said, on the expenditure side, government has been very conservative and disciplined still, which is all in the spirit of austerity. But at some point, we need to move beyond this because I've indicated, yes, the stability we have seen is great, is good for businesses to plan, is good to lay the foundation for growth. But beyond that, you need to grow. And by growing as a developing country, we need the infrastructure, we need the injections that will generate productive activity. So investment ought to go into the real sector. And so under the real sector, yes, we are keenly watching the 24-hour economy policy was launched.
Yeah.
I believe that that is the ambit through which government is going to roll out major investment and also revamp the real sector for productive growth. And so we are keenly watching, but overall, it is important for us to remain on track to protect the gains that have been made. Inflation is now quite at a significantly lower level, which is indicating that government is on track to achieving the set target of 8 to 10% by the end of the year. All these are good indicators. And you know, economic policy management is significantly based on expectations. And if people do not expect government to be reckless post the first half, then it means that the pattern we've seen would continue, and that would mean that the stability can be protected. But for me, as I keep indicating, we need to move beyond this, see that government is being a bit aggressive and not
laid back.
Just exactly laying back, because jobs must be created, growth must be, yes.
Well, you say that though, government too is ensuring that they don't spend too much expenditure. They're going to cut back on expenditure, but I'm trying to juxtapose that against you saying they should go all out to ensure there's some growth in the economy. If government is trying to, control its spending, and with the introduction of the 24-hour economy and the fact that we need to push ahead and grow, how is government going to, is it enough to cut expenditure to accrue some money, or government has to do more than that?
Exactly. Cutting expenditure to protect the foundation is good. But like I said, that alone does not generate the growth, you see.
Okay.
Because we are faced with a number of issues. And so for that matter, we want to see the innovative ideas to work on our tax handle. So in the main budget, there was a promise of review and reforms of the VAT. There was a promise to look at, for example, the need to look at the COVID levy and come back on some restructuring formats. Government ought to be aggressive on the revenue aspect to bring in the necessary resources, because you need the resources before you can spend. Otherwise, you go on a borrowing ambit, which does not necessarily inure to the benefit of the country, because usually the borrowing does not go into investments that come in with returns over time.
Does that mean government will now have to tax, even though that is not what they want to do?
Of course, you need to generate the revenue. So in terms of the revenue generation, it can come in from, I do not also anticipate any introduction of a tax, but perhaps we have seen that there could be some revision of levies, government levies for government services, which I mean, to a large extent will not be misplaced if it's introduced, because the revenue ought to come in. And so we need to get to the point where I believe that Ghanaians must realize the resources we need for development will not come from anywhere. It has to be generated within. And even when we borrow, on the expenditure side, the kinds of things we use the resources for are critical. So at this point, you are controlling expenditure, but you also need a lot of efficiency in rolling our government programs and policies so that we introduce efficiency. So the little you get to spend, you get a lot of returns from that. And that government do not, move into expenditures that do not inure to productivity increases in the economy. And so on one hand, you are tackling revenue, which is constrained, difficult to generate. There should be some innovative ideas to continuously broaden the tax base and raking revenue. And also, on the other hand, on the expenditure side, it's been controlled so far. Efficiency in utilization is what we need. And when that is done, I believe that government can come out a bit more and do the investments that is needed, really.
Right. You know, government has managed to scrap the betting tax and some other taxes, but introducing or keeping the COVID levy, will that affect VAT inflows?
The COVID levy, as I indicated prior to reading of this budget, would, if it's eliminated, would create a deep hole in government revenue basket. And so I was not surprised it was maintained. And consistently, if it goes out, then it means that government needs to find an avenue to rake it in. And in that context, I'm of the opinion that yes, COVID is gone, but perhaps the best they probably would be to rename the tax handle, because it's a very important tax handle within government revenue. And if care is not taken, and you would want to play to the gallery and take it out for political expediency, it might come out to hurt you. If you overrun your budget and you post deficit, you would have to finance the deficit, and you end up borrowing and then derailing all the achievements you've made. And so it's a tricky balance, but we know that the betting levy went off. It did not bring in much, and it was quite appealing to young people. I still hold a view that yes, taxation is not just about revenue mobilization, it is about modeling people's behavior. And so
you think it was a rushed decision by government to have crossed out that tax?
For political expediency, I think that it appealed to a lot of young people. And so, I mean, holding politicians accountable to their promises, I think that is also something that we ought to look at. And so government stuck to its promise. I may say that maybe the promise really was not a great promise that was made, but I mean, if you speak to politicians, you always have to, I mean, you need the power to effect whatever change you want to make. And so if it appeals to your base, you may want to go for it. But I still believe that there should be a way that that sector must be taxed. And so we are not encouraging young people to bet. So in that context, some form of taxation ought to come in, because we need the revenue. People are earning incomes on betting, and so they must pay taxes on it. Just like I go to work and I pay tax on my income at the end of the month.
All right. Oh, we seem to have lost Dr. Chumesi once again.
I'm here, Mami.
Good that you're on the line. So, Doc, looks like the decision is actually to look within the domestic market to finance our deficit. Do you see government starting to issue domestic bonds?
I believe that with the relative stability we've seen, it will not be out of place. There is the need for us to revamp the bond market, post the issues, the significant impact that the debt restructuring posed on it. We need to build confidence back in the economy, because at the moment, the status quo of borrowing from the very short end of the market through the use of treasury bills is not sustainable and is usually quite expensive. Although I must say that government has really pushed down the T-bill rates, borrowing on a 3-month, 6-month basis, 1-year basis is not really something that is sustainable for long-term investment. So the bond market is critical, but on the domestic front. On the international front, we are also watching the space. I believe that it will also be quite expensive for government to move on to the international market to go and borrow. Based on the recent history of the economy, it will come at a higher interest rate, and that will be punitive to the system, really.
Looks like a challenging situation for government, though. Anyway, Doc, kindly stay with me. We'll go to Parliament and then we'll come back. And Kweku Asante is in Parliament for us. Kweku, we are hearing rumors that the minority is planning on boycotting this reading. Is that true?
Mamesi, that is the indication we are getting. We are yet to officially get a confirmation from the minority in terms of what exactly their strategy is. But we can confirm to you that the minority have scheduled to present petitions to the president and other bodies around the same time as the media budget presentation is expected to be held. That is around 12 noon. We expect that the minority will leave. In fact, right now, if you go to the frontage of Parliament, you will see that about 2 buses are parked there. We expect that a couple of Land Cruisers will join. And so right when proceedings begin, what we do not know is what exactly the strategy is going to be. Are the minority going to come to the floor and announce that this is what they are going to do, for which reason they are leaving, and walk out, or they will not come at all? Or will they come and leave some MPs on the floor? That is all matters that are up in the air. We are yet to get any kind of details on that. But I can confirm to you, Mamisi, that a couple of events have already been arranged by the minority around the same time that the finance minister is expected to be on the days presenting the media budget review, the statement. And as we've heard now, the government says it does not expect to come and ask for more money. And so we do not expect that the finance minister will come by way of motion and make requests for money that will be referred to the finance committee or any committee for that matter. What is going to happen is that the finance minister will come by statement, MPs will comment on it, for instance, in the next few days before they go on break, next week, Friday perhaps. And so 2 major things we expect today. 1, the minister is not going to ask for money. 2, the minority are expected to not be around when these proceedings begin, because they say they are very important national matters that they have to attend to, for which reason they are presenting a petition to the president, to Kodeo, to the Dean of the Diplomatic Press Corps. But in particular, what we do not know is also whether the presidency will be open to receiving them, especially at the time that the finance minister is expected to be in the House presenting the media budget statement. Will the government open its doors to receive a petition that will disrupt or that will distract from the media presentation that will be made on the floor? All of these details are up in the air. We are yet to get a confirmation. And as I speak, the first member of parliament just walked into the chamber. That is the first member of parliament that has walked in. The chamber is largely empty. MPs haven't arrived. Proceedings was expected to start at 10 a.m. It didn't. It will now start at 12 a.m. From what we usually know, even 12 a.m. is very suspect. It is very likely that a 12 a.m. plan may not come to fruition, perhaps 12:30 or 1. All of those details we will get to know in the next few hours. But Mamesi is shaping up to be Dr. Kesela Tofosen's first media budget presentation. After he presented his first budget statement in March, he's going to review what he has done in the last 4 months and also what he expects the economic situation to be in the last 6 months. The minority said they expect to hear from the finance minister how exactly he expects to sustain the gains that the economy has been making over the last few months.
Right. Well, cool. But have you interacted with, I know just one person has come into the chamber, like you earlier said, but have you, spoken to any MPs to find out the anticipation ahead of the budget review?
Well, as of this morning, we haven't done that because a couple of members of, there are almost no members of parliament around. When you look at the MP's car park, you see very few cars that are parked there. Obviously, because it's at 12 noon, MPs will a bit delay before they come in. But that's something we are going to do, speak to members of parliament, get to understand what exactly their strategy and what the expectations are going into the day, but also to hear from the majority in particular. If the minority are planning on doing what we now know they are going to do, what exactly is going to be their strategy to counter? I recall in the 8th Parliament, at some point, the minority boycotted proceedings. The then NDC minority boycotted proceedings. What the MPP did was to fill up their seats so that it will not leave one side of the House very empty. And so today, that is the indication we are getting that if the minority who are on that side of the House do boycott proceedings, perhaps a couple of NDC MPs will go in there and fill their seats so that the chamber will not be empty as it will become if the minority are to walk out. But we'll get some indications, definitely from the majority leadership, perhaps Mahama Yariga, the chief whip himself, who will also give us some indication. What exactly is the strategy? What will be the plan if this is to happen? Are there engagements going on? Because yesterday, the minority on the floor, they did not give any indication. They did not say openly that they're going to do this. In fact, they're even talking as though they will be here when the finance minister comes. But I can tell you authoritatively that there are a couple of plans underway which will see the minority leave Parliament after 12 o'clock to present a petition to the president. In fact, they put out a public statement out as far back as Monday that is something that they're going to do, Mamesi.
All right, Kweku, thank you very much for that update. We'll definitely come back to you in subsequently. And I still have Dr. Priscilla Chumesi Baffour with me, still on the budget. Dr. Chumesi, beyond businesses, what should households look forward to in this budget?
Right. Thank you, Mamesi. I believe that households are anticipating that the trajectory the country is on would continue. And so for that matter, inflation rates would continue to come down so that they would build a lot of power into their ability to purchase goods and services. And so households are anticipating that government would not overpost its budget in terms of what needs to be done to maintain the stability we have. The city's performance, we anticipate that it should continue. It's been a very strong performance in the past 6 months. And so we anticipate that it should be maintained so that the purchasing power of households will be protected. In essence, at the end of the day, what are households interested in? Households are interested in the ability to put food on the table, the ability to have a decent living. And all comes in when you protect the incomes of people through persistent and continuous effective management of inflation, which to a large extent also depends on the currency because we are highly import dependent, really.
Thank you so much, Dr. Priscilla Chumesi Baffour, for joining us. I know you're very busy, but took time out of your busy schedule to be with us.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Well, there are some expectations, especially in Techiman. Let's take that update from our colleague, Anas Sabit.
Atu Forsen steps into Parliament today, driven by law. The Financial Administration Act and the Public Financial Management Act demand this mid-year reckoning. But here in the Techiman metropolis, Ghana's vital agricultural and trading heartland, residents are driven by something more immediate, the daily struggle to make ends meet.
What we need from the government in this new year budget is about the stabilization of the economy. They should try and make it stable. So the government should address those sectors. And I think the corruption is entering deep into our system. They should work hard on it.
Mohamed Shahudeen's plea for economic stability echoes across the market. But stability alone isn't enough. Many here see job creation as a bedrock of progress.
All that I'm saying is, I think the government should look at the private sector and give them a little support so that they can expand their businesses so as to be able to employ this unemployment graduates and other things in a way to support the government.
Infrastructure remains a critical concern. Also, Emmanuel again points to the very road that connects or hinders Techiman's prosperity.
I think the government should look at the infrastructural development also, especially our roads. They are not very good. And most of them leads to this rampant accidents that we have on the ways.
And for consumers feeling the pinch, Thomas Usuansa points a finger directly at import costs and appeals to government to get it addressed.
For goods that we are importing from the other countries to Ghana. But when they come to the port, the fee on the port is still higher. it's not yet reducing. So we are begging President that you're reducing the price on the port for us, so that everything will come down for us. So.
Yet amidst the challenges, there is acknowledgement of government's efforts. Livestock farmers like Ms. Bao Adam sees potential in existing agricultural policies, but urges expansion of government's Nkukon policy to the sheep and cattle sectors.
During his campaign, I said, Nkukon ye ebeboa pa enyam Nkukon na ntwen ketenkete nyina ka ho eni ndwan ketenkete nyina ye enya omo a wate ne meka na ase no ma na adwen ko agrek no so a ebeboa ye.
So as Dr. Forson details the fiscal strategy today, the people of Techiman have a clear, multifaceted message: stabilize our economy, empower our businesses, fix our rules, ease the burden of import costs, and invest in all aspects of agriculture from poultry to livestock. They are watching closely, hoping this media review translates into tangible relief and opportunity for their businesses and families. Anna Sabit, Joy News, Techiman.
We've also been taking the views of Ghanaians a week on after the introduction of the 1 Ghana Cedi fuel levy. Let's take a listen.
Good morning and welcome to Prime Morning. My name is Sheila Sechi. Today I'm live at the Obra Sport Bus Terminal, which happens to be one of the busiest.
It is when once you buy the member quite the enemy pencil.
It's in Sisia, say Abanye Tia, some Mpenifo Tia, solution Ben Pan, Obema.
Oh, Tia, driver for Yakupo, you are any atoso. Driver Nibia Yakupo, you are any because say Milodu, Yakupo, you are a toss it. Milodu in part 23. Omu Yakupo me. Samako we two taught in my two who Nikai active free Mpuimwa. Obakasa me abonsam, but me do baby Aukwa, was second God on me. What I say, was second God on me. And to a man and inquire who won't share ye. Now, you're small mine, pa, you're bought or mine. Why not Davon Mahama? And your driver knee. Why not Davon a vice? And your driver knee. To Dava for your sumbo. To a man and inquire no more my respect. I more true. Pa. Near my pension pay be him. We are near the boy fee. Yadishaya, ma. Swung. Into all my respect. Now, you're seeing to me, now I'm found fee. Sorry,
Bamida Sepa. I'm still here at Circle, and where I'm speaking to some of the drivers. Their grievances are quite a lot. I would go into their midst right now and try and see if I can catch, some of their concerns. But when okay, so I have another concerned driver here with me. Offer. In some Ama my bottle kakraba treme. Seriously, then pana mo pesa abine ye edeboamo.
Nia ye pesa abine ye ne boy ni se. Era na se wa be kunwa no so. Na driver for ye nkrophobia ye asa ye mobo pa. Esa ne se ejuma na ye no eno na ye de hwe ye ngabusua. Sesi scanner mo de ato fuel no so no. Ha adwen papa esa ne say ka na enti ni say so ye wo ye adwuma ka na no obeji ni say pepe fi wunsem ti say sika no wo driver no e na wo sofa at the end of the day no wo driver no na say sika ni nyina ye ti fi wunsem ebe de na wanya bia kohwe wa busua obekwa boso kan nyama na ewo aboso kan no ne boarding yanti bia so ye okoto benku a sanya benku atini benku no saa enti driver for yesre nara yehu se aban bi baaye ordinate driver for so ewie no olusu lesson poto enti so obehwe driver for se ene obekọ DVLA for any nam kwan so baby obedu bia na track driver so na how at the end of the day no wo driver na wo kaka no wo na sa sika ni nyina ukotom
ena me hu fa so bia ode abrem. It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Sana me hu no obe yi su di dada ye now dey yi levy abetusu at the day na ye robbing Peter to pay Paul sana o ye no Emi ekamim madun aka eni kwan say aka oyisu. O maintain 17 and 16 dana per liter no. Na tax no ewo mumum say omudi beba. They keep it in secret. My me affect ye. Since I any open, am I affect ye? I say otisu no ye niji ye. Since I was at mu.
First name saying akosi
16 points baby. I can't remember the last figure on it.
Well, there's growing pressure on the Office of the Attorney General to disclose the full rationale behind its decision to opt for partial recovery in the high-profile case involving former Finance Minister Dr. Baffour, a decision critics say may undermine public confidence in the government's anti-corruption drive. The Attorney General on July 22 entered a nolle prosequi in the high-profile case involving Dr. Baffour and 7 others who were facing charges related to the collapse of Unibank, a case which forms a key part of broader financial sector cleanup exercise initiated by the state in 2018. A private legal practitioner, Martin Pebo, speaking on PM Express last night, says the AG must provide details on why his outfit opted for partial recovery.
I take the point that Dufour has a relationship with NDC, Ayene was in the case, Eduji. I take all those points, right? Oh, perfect. You know, I mean, it's just that the time hasn't come for us to start yelling in higher decibels because there's still a lot of euphoria. I take all those points. But the point still remains that to be scientific about this, we'll have to ask for more transparency. It's all about transparency. We need to see the evidence. What did Dufour offer? Maybe if they said, look, these are all of our assets, what went into it? It's only when we see what they offered and then we can show that, oh, beyond the pool of funds or assets they have these other ones stashed somewhere. Then that's when we'll begin to cry that the AG didn't do the best that he had to do. So until we get information that the Dufours didn't put forward their best offer or the AG didn't negotiate well, we cannot complain. We can't just hinge the fact that AG was in the case, that's Ayene represented one of them, Eduji was in the case, etc., to conclude that ipso facto they deliberately chose 60% when they could have had 100. If we were to do that, it wouldn't work. So maybe, even though we've not had all of the transparency, the revelations, we can begin. And in the morning, we're on the Super Morning Show. I was on with Suleiman Abrahima, Baffour, etc. And we all agreed that we are asking for further and better particulars.
Meanwhile, fundraising manager for Ghana Integrity Initiative, Michael Bwedi, says government's approach to the banking sector cleanup, which led to the collapse of several financial institutions, could have been better managed to preserve jobs and investor confidence.
In all the conversation, what everybody seems to say is that, look, the law never gets to its majesty. It said that when the law in its majesty forbids the king and the pauper from sleeping at the park. But you and I know that the king would never sleep at the park. It's always going to be the pauper. So the law technically targets the pauper. So we know that to popular individuals, they would get, a handshake, a pat at the back. It doesn't absolve the individuals who perhaps may have engaged in wrongdoing, occasioning the loss from prosecution. So we could have handled the banks differently, save jobs, keep probably save resources that we threw at it, and probably recover some money. But it will not take away the fact that if people mishandle state resources, people engage in wrongdoing, they must face the law. They are facing the law not because it is one political individual or party that is prosecuted, but crime is crime, irrespective of whom is in the helm of affairs. So I think when we distinguish we disaggregate the issues, we'll be able to deal with it a lot better.
You're still watching Joy News Desk here on the Joy News channel. We'll take a break and return with business. Welcome back to Joy News Desk. Now, the National Labour Commission is worried about the possible exploitation of workers as Ghana moves towards implementing the 24-hour economy program. According to the Commission, existing regulations do not adequately address the realities of continuous shift work, leaving employees vulnerable to abuse. It is calling for urgent reforms to ensure fair compensation, efficiency during work periods, and proper regulation of overtime and night work. Stephen Mensah reports.
Push toward a 24-hour economy is drawing concern from the National Labour Commission. It warns that without urgent labour reforms, workers could be exploited under the pressure of continuous shift work. Current laws, the Commission says, do not adequately cover night shift, overtime or compensation in a round-the-clock economy. Executive Secretary Dr. Bernice Welbeck is calling for the retooling of the Labour Department to ensure better oversight and accountability.
When it comes to workforce exploitation, you know we have a Labour Department which is in charge of labour inspection. So what it means is that for this program, as part of the processes, I think the Labour Department should be properly resourced so that they can undertake a labour inspection. Because when they go to do labour inspection, that is where they can come out with the exploitation. If indeed there are exploitations, they can come out with those. And then if that is referred to the commission, if the industry or the sector is advised and nothing is done, then that can be referred to the commission and the commission will deal with it. So I think the issue of labour inspection is very critical in this agenda. They have the human resource, but in terms of you need a vehicle, they need to move around to do the inspections, you know, and so yes, vehicles to do the inspections and any other thing that facilitates, because I know that the inspection, I mean, there's a criteria for the inspection. So whatever resources are needed, they must be resourced to be able to undertake the the inspections.
Meanwhile, government has announced plans to convert the Tamale Airport into a dedicated cargo terminal. According to Head of Strategy and Programs at the 24-Hour Economy Secretariat, Abdul Nasser, the upgrade will significantly enhance agro-export capacity and is projected to create over 5,000 direct and indirect jobs across the northern sector.
Access to critical medical supplies in hard-to-reach communities can often mean the difference between life and death, but with advancements in technology, there's a renewed sense of hope. Since Zipline Ghana began operations in 2019, the country has seen significant improvements in medical delivery, warehousing and storage systems. Speaking at a media engagement at the Zipline Hub at Enum in the Sujaman district of the Eastern Region, Head of Zipline Ghana, Daniel Kweku-Meki, revealed that the company is not only enhancing healthcare access, but also building capacity, employing over 200 skilled professionals across the country. Kwame Yanka reports.
6 years ago, Zipline launched in Ghana with a mission to revolutionize healthcare delivery using drones. Today, it has surpassed a major milestone as over 8.4 million medical products have been delivered to more than 3,000 health facilities across 14 regions of the country. From malaria and HIV medicines to blood, vaccine and maternal health supplies, Zipline's autonomous delivery system is credited with helping reduce maternal mortality by over 56% in some regions, increasing antenatal care and childhood vaccination rates, as well as drastically cutting down vaccine stockouts. Head of Zipline Ghana, Daniel Kweku-Meki, says the company's impact goes beyond health into agriculture and education as it continues its collaboration with government.
So what we are trying to build right now is a nationwide infrastructure where we can serve Ghanaians across all those medical use cases, but then we also want to expand beyond that. We want to be in agriculture. We have flown exam papers, exam materials in the past, so you want to work in the education space. And beyond the public sector, we also see a lot of opportunities in the private sector where, again, we will be like the infrastructure service provider, and then Ghanaian companies, including startups, could provide solutions in which they can use our aerial logistics and centralized warehousing systems to basically deliver superior, more innovative delivery systems for Ghanaians across the country.
Daniel Kwikumeki revealed that Zipline's operations have helped save nearly 9,700 lives, including 1,600 snakebite victims, and organizing over 300 blood drives with 20,000 units collected for the National Blood Service. Meanwhile, in charge at the Choho Chips compound in the Volta region, Sandra Dede Ayayi says delivery of critical medical supplies has improved healthcare delivery. However,
And that's all we have for you on Joy News Desk, but the conversation on the budget review continues right about now with MFR Dete. We'll go back to Parliament, but I'll leave you here, and thanks for listening.